Today in this tutorial we are going to look at how you can recreate this bubble text effect within After Effects. I have created this previously in one of my templates that I created where you can easily drag and drop bubble letters, customize the highlights, customize the colors, text, etc. We are going to go ahead and make a version of this today. So let's jump right in and I'll explain more as we go. Let's create a new composition. And you can name it. I'm going with 1920 by 1080 and 25 frames per second, and I'm just doing 5 seconds long today. So go ahead and set up your background. For me, I am just going to import a couple of images, and no, you do not have to use the exact same images that I do, but please just be aware that it might look a little bit different than mine. This is not a reason to panic, it is to be expected. I would just recommend that you use the exact same numbers that I am using so you don't get lost, and at the end of the first letter you can start getting creative with colors. This is some examples. Here you can see that when I change the background, even though it is all the same color, we have a different look. So don't panic if it does not look exactly the same, you are doing just fine. So I have just gone layer, new solid, and I am going to call this BG. Go to effects and presets and add a gradient ramp to it, where I'm going to use a specific color. The start color is just going to be white, and the second color I am going to name DD5495. If you are following along, I am just going to adjust the points here on this blend mode so that my color burn isn't quite so extreme when I change the blend mode on this layer. So on our background layer, let's do color burn. I'm going to grab a text and I'm just going to type in hi. I'm just going to make this 250. But if you're working with the same text, just make sure that the height is 120 and the width is 140. I will link this font down below. It is free to download. And I'm just going to put this and align it. Now we are going to right click on our text and click create masks from text. I'm going to duplicate this actually, and on the bottom one I'm going to delete the I, and on the top one I'm going to delete the H. So now we have our two letters that are separate. Oops, gosh. I might actually lock our backgrounds. You know what I might do as well is actually just to show how we can actually just do it with any shape that we want. I might just put in a little love heart because I don't know, this is just the shape that I seem to gravitate towards in every project. I just can't help myself. Oh, this is not a super pretty love heart, but I'm just going to convert this to a handle. I'm quite happy with this. Let's just scale it down, rotate it a little bit. I'm not too fussy with this little love heart. Alright, we had our two shapes that started from text and a solid as well, but basically these are all solids with masks on them. And the first thing that we want to do is go to our layer solid settings, and I am going to name this H, and this bit is the important bit. We want it to be this blue color, and same for layer solid settings. I'm going to call this I, and again I'll just leave this for a second so you can see the color. This is the color we want, and I'm going to do the same for our love heart. The first thing we want on this, I'm actually going to go right click layer styles and add a bevel and emboss, and then In the blending options here, just go to advanced blending, and we're going to change the opacity to 20%. And I'm actually going to rename this to H base. Alright, this is so I don't get confused. We have a few layers going on. For this bevel and emboss, we want to make sure the style is inner bevel, technique is smooth, depth is 100, direction is up, the size is 45. We want to change soften to 6.9. Make sure the angle is 122. The altitude is 60. We're going to make the highlight mode screen, and we want to change this color to FFC6C6. We want the highlight opacity to be 30%, and make sure that the shadow opacity is set to 0. Then we're going to go to the effects and presets, grab a gradient ramp again, and we're going to put it on this layer, and your one might be over here, your effects. We want to of this to EE B3FF. If this keeps happening to you, you can press caps lock to just refresh the view. And on the second color, we want EB6 BCE. Alright, then we are going to go to our masks on this layer, drop down, and we want to make sure that the mask feather is set to 10 and the expansion is set to 1. Great. Now we are going to press Ctrl D, duplicate this. We are going to rename this to H internal highlight 1. I am going to go to the layer styles on this one. First I'm going to delete the effects, then I'm going to go to the advanced blending, and I'm going to set this to 0. Then we are going back to bevel and emboss. We want to make sure this is set to pillow emboss, technique smooth. We want the depth to be 100, direction up, the size is going to be 70 this time, soften set to 0, angle 122, altitude 80. We want the highlight mode to be screen, the highlight color, we are going to change this to 1600 BA. We want the highlight opacity to be 100, and we are going to keep the shadow opacity on 0. Then we are going to go to the mask. We are going to change the feather to 0 and the expansion to 0. Okay, then we are going to duplicate this H again. We are going to confirm that our fill opacity is still on 0, then go to the bevel and emboss again. We want pillow emboss smooth. We're going to change the depth to 50, direction to up, the size to 15, soften to 16, the angle to 100, the altitude to 80. We are going to change this highlight mode to linear light, and we are going to change this highlight color to B5 FFD3. Make sure that your highlight opacity is set to 100, and yet the shadow is still on 0. Then we want to make sure that the mask is set to 0. And you know what? I have gone and set you wrong. On the highlight 1, we are just going to go back to the mask and make sure that the feather is set to 10. I apologize. This is, yeah, it's quite confusing. I've been trying to be very clear with names because I made an entire alphabet of this project, and it took a little bit of hard work. Right, now we're going to duplicate this one more time. Drop down again to our layer styles. Go to bevel and emboss again. Now pillow emboss, smooth, back to 100. The direction is up. We want the size to be 27, soften to be 0. We want this angle to be 16, the altitude to be 80. We're going to change the highlight mode back to screen, make the highlight color 10 be 3FF, and our highlight opacity to 80, and our shadow opacity is still at 0. Then we are going to go to the masks and change the feather to 10 and the expansion to -4. And I lied before. We're going to duplicate one more time. This is the final time. I'm going to name this light. Okay, then we are going to go to Effects and Presets. I'm going to type in 4, and we want the 4 color gradient. And the colors that I am using here are FFAAC6, 50ABFF, 48A100, and it's just white. Great, we want that blend set to 10 and the opacity set to 100. Then we want to add a CC glass. Change the bump map to H base, and then we just want the softness to be 100, the height to be 70, the displacement to be -100, and we want the light intensity to be 30. The color can stay at white, the light type can be distant light, and we want it to be 80. I'm so sorry, it's just so many numbers. Yeah, it's a bit finicky, this one. Okay, so now we are going to add a turbulent displace. And we are going to keep this at turbulent, change this to 20, make the size 80, change the complexity, note that's good. And yep, on this evolution, we are just going to hold down Alt and click on this clock. And in this box down here, we are going to type time times 100. And now, oh yeah, you can see a little bit of movement. Now, go ahead and on this H layer, delete the layer styles. That's on the light layer to delete the layer styles. And Control C, copy that turbulent displace and place it on every layer. the last thing you want to do for this is change on here the blend mode on the light layer to soft light. This is what we have with the turbulent displace on. We've got this cool moving bubble. And now that we have this, this is where you can go back and you can start changing highlight colors. So to change the entire look of it, you would go back to our bevel and emboss on every layer, and actually I was just going to change the opacity of the base layer to 31. So as I was saying before, now is the time when you can start customizing all of your colors. On the template that I created, I actually created a layer controller and I just put all the colors in one quick setup so that you can go through and easily check a color. I'm not going to go over this today, however it is still easy enough to do. We just click onto each of our layers, go into the bevel and emboss settings and just go to the color and change it there. You can see I've done red and it just quickly changes the highlight color. So go ahead and select all of your layers, right click and press pre-compose. Just rename this, I'm calling this one H, move all attributes and press OK. Once it is pre-composed, you can see that this has happened. This is really easy to fix. Just come down here and press this star. Basically what has happened here, this is to do with, it is called collapsing transformations, and this has to do with how After Effects treats your layer in the order that it is rendered. Now that we have a single pre-composed layer, we can add transformations that we couldn't easily add before when we had 4 or 5 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the scale to 160. I am also just going to hold down Alt on the stopwatch and adjust the rotation with an expression. So I'm going to come into this box and I'm going to type wiggle, open bracket, 0.1, 10, closed bracket, and that is going to create some bubble-like movements on this layer. I will also just add a couple of quick keyframes on the position just so it kind of looks like this bubble is floating up. And that is our H done. I am just going to repeat the process for the rest of our letters. Luckily, once you have done your first letter, you can just copy and paste the layer styles. So for example, we are going to rename this base. I am just going to go to this layer, copy the effects, copy the layer styles, come on back here, paste them, then we are going to copy the mask, 10 and 1. I will just speed this up because, you know, we've done this already. And this is what we have with all of the letters completed. You can see with this heart that it is exactly the same settings, and I actually prefer to have this a bit pink, so just show this up here. It's going to show up here. I'm just going to lock this for a second. On the template that I created, I just had a little drag and drop slider that we could see this color, like the opacity of the base, but I actually kind of like it with you can see that it's like changing it here, but oh, that's nice too. I love getting creative with this stuff. That looks cool, but I think I'm going to go back to pink. But yes, you can see when I change the opacity on this down here, go all the way down, and that goes away entirely. Whereas I had, on the other letters I've set it to 31. So I will add a vignette, excuse me. I want that to be black, and I'm just going to do a little mask there and feather that heaps and just make the opacity like 13. Yeah, only just slightly so that we can see the background. And here we have our final render. That is it for today, everyone. I hope this tutorial was clear cut and that you have achieved what you needed to achieve today. If you enjoy this kind of content and you want to learn more After Effects, make sure to like and subscribe. This is the kind of content I post. Click this video right here. This is what YouTube thinks that you should watch next, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.